Re-engage.
Are you calling the meeting back to order at 10:47?
I am calling the meeting back to order at 10:27. And this is off of mute. Yes. And so are we at a point where we've talked a lot about a lot of great things today. I think that we're seeing our way forward to have a few more work sessions on some of this, and it's great to have an opportunity to talk to the commission freely and stuff, so I'm really excited that we were able to gain a lot of ground here. And so are we just kind of following up on capital improvement plan and budget priorities?
We can, and then I'm sure it will generate additional questions.
Yeah, I mean, the meeting's not over by any means.
Yeah. I think the next one after the, unless we have some general questions about the business plan summary that I provided, some of the comments that I made, we can move on. But if somebody still has some questions about on my comments.
I think on personnel steps, where do you see us going the next year? I mean, we're looking at are we still looking at hiring a couple people, or?
Well, at this point in time, what we are looking at it is keeping. We always try to get some part-timers during the busy season, and I don't believe we have put anyone to be hired. Instead, what we're trying to do is increase the salaries of those that are already here to match what the survey says, or in some cases improve that a bit because of the area that we live. So what we would like to do eventually is trying to bring in more interns, and in some cases there are some ways to get interns for almost for free. And unfortunately, as we discussed it in the office, until we have a building that can sustain so many people, right now we can barely, trying to keep this 6 feet of separation during the coronavirus is very challenging for us already, because we are very small, in very small quarters. So I don't think we can afford space-wise to bring in more employees. I think on the operations, we didn't talk about.
We're not looking at adding any spots or anything. The temporary workforce gives us a measure of flexibility, at least if we budget for it. Sometimes we need it. There's all kinds of things that come. One of the things that you just said, you never know what's going to happen to somebody health-wise or whatever. Or sometimes if you all of a sudden somebody shows up and says, I'm looking to do some sort of new thing. If we have a couple of temporary employee spaces available, we can respond to that. But that's but we're not expecting a change with it.
Other than replacing people if they decide to leave.
And we were going to have some increases this year. We're in the last quarter of the fiscal year. Have we made up those increases, or are we still going to looking at doing more increases before the next fiscal year?
We have implemented all the increases for this year that we intended to. There was the increase with the 50 extra thousand the commission provided. There was the step increase for the typical CPI, cost of living, and then there was the now we are asking, obviously, for starting the new year, because one of the things that I am changing, and the reason I didn't bring it to commission to ask for commission is because to start with, the first change was never brought to commission. Apparently, the previous manager changed how we implement increases. It should be done by fiscal year because we're a fiscal year court. And so increases really should be implemented on after July 1st. Well, he changed it to calendar year, which made the accounting, the finance folks having to budget that half a year one way, half a year. it's something that he never brought up to the commission to ask permission to change that. So I'm just going back and fixing that issue. So what I end up doing is I did the step increase as it should at the time. So we actually implemented 3 of them, but all within the budget, okay, for this year. So now we're starting fresh. We're moving on, starting July 1st, we will implement that instead of waiting all the way until December. Because when that got implemented, what happened is staff went a year and a half without any increases. So anyhow, so unless anybody has any issue, that's what I'm doing. I'm changing that back to what it should have been to start with.
No, I was just making sure that we had made all the increases that we had planned and should brought forth, and that we're up to date on that. We don't have that expenditure for the next one.
It's all in place, and if you approve the budget moving forward, there will be a substantial increase again, and that is finally to catch up, even though we did, to show you how behind we were. Even though with all the increases that we did, we're still quite far for some people. Some are already closer to what it should be, but some positions are so far behind that that's where we are asking for that.
We're not going to that.
It's just we're losing people left and right. It was crazy. And the first 5 months I was here, we lost, I think, 4 people, 5 people, something like that. And it's like,
That was number 1 on my list, was wage increases top to bottom. It's just, you're not gonna go anywhere with wages like the Port's paying.
now I realized moving here from Portland, I thought it would be cheaper than using. We have wages from a small town somewhere in Oregon, but for being here at the coast in Newport, our cost of living here, as you all know, it's quite expensive. So when people cannot afford to work and live here, it's difficult. So that's, to me, is very important that we're able to train good people and keep them.
And if people are leaving here to go to other jobs in the area, that tells us something.
Yes.
Which they are.
Yeah. We lost some good people that are going to show up places.
What you will see is a movement in the temporary staff that used to be an expense item, because we're using a firm in St. Helens to do our recruiting. They didn't do our recruiting for us, to hire to a temp agency. So we paid their salary, plus we paid the temp agency on top of that. What we're doing now is hiring direct, saving about $4,000 per employee by doing that. But we do limit the number of hours they can work as a temporary employee. After 6 months of continuous employment in a calendar year, and over their terms. So those are things we have to watch out for, but we're aware of it. So if you see that extra item on there, I actually, when you get this at the end of the meeting, you'll see that, and I just want to point it out to you.
Is that 6 months at 32 hours a week or greater?
Yeah,
Or is it
40
40?
hours.
It is at 40.
40 hours. It's based on number of hours, not months.
No, okay.
It works out. It's about 6 months as well.
At 40. Thank you.
You have any questions about the personal staff and wages?
Essential move.
So we're gonna be doing what we can to increase that when the budget is approved, and if there's some miracle of lots of extra income, we could change it again.
I think the only thing we have already sat down and come up with a plan for all the employees, except for my salary, because that's really the commissioner's decision, where you want to put me at. I did not have any increases during the time when we increased everybody's. Neither Mark or I, being new hires, we did not have the regular, the 50,000 increase. We did not include ourselves on that.
So we're gonna start that, or do that in May?
Well, May 5th is my 1 year, so
Okay.
that
And
is
you had
something we
said that
probably
that
need
would
to
be
schedule review for that.
And then what Mark's wages, he's your hire,
Yeah, no, I'm taking care of Mark,
right?
but I'm saying that on that 50,000 that you approved,
Right,
we did not. We did the cost of living increase,
right.
but we have not done that additional. And when we're asking at this point is that again, that additional.
Right.
And that additional amount is, Mark picked a number, include me. I didn't want to be a part of making that decision because I don't know what you will come up with. So that is something you may want to think about it as we move forward with everybody's increase and how much, where you think I should be at.
And I don't build an assumption of what Paul would be at, so that if an increase is built in, and what I built the model to do is feed directly into the budget. So all we do is change her salary and it feeds right into our forms. So,
What is that? Is that in here somewhere?
So
That increase from this year?
it doesn't say what the increase is, okay? It just shows what, if you look under personnel expenses,
Yep.
the first and second pages show the hourly rate by step and the monthly salary that equates to.
Gotcha, but the actual increase from this year's staff is not.
I don't have
Here.
that data, that's correct. Oh, and I provide you a summary too. The 1920 versus 2021.
And so on page 29 of 171, the first page of the personnel expenses, those are the number of people that we actually have hired. Those are actual named individuals that work at the port,
No, those are
just positions.
by classification, position classification, what we would pay. The second page does the same thing, by classification, what we pay. And page 31 is, if I took everyone and put them, when I took everyone, put this all together, this is what it ends up.
So everybody is in.
In page 31, that's everyone.
And if you look at the page 29, for instance, we may have more than one maintenance one or more than one maintenance two. And also what may vary is the time of them in the job. So someone that has been there for 5 years obviously going to be making more than someone that just got hired.
Right.
So that's why you got those steps, because.
And so that has gotten rectified because we were losing so many people the whole time I've been a commissioner, I think. And so we'd hire people and try to get them more money, but then the people that were already here needed more money.
Exactly.
Yeah, do a pay
So-
equity analysis to make sure we pay everybody.
And
27 through 60.
And hopefully, now that we created a system and we should have the starting point at a reasonable amount, we shouldn't have to negotiate with someone to pay much more than that bracket. We'll try to stay on that. If somebody wants to make more, well, and you find somebody equally.
Yeah, at one point in the dark days, I didn't know if someone was getting hired at a higher rate for their position than somebody who had been there for 5 years.
The Fair Labor Act kind of took away a lot of that.
It's
What
a
we
good
dealt
thing.
with last year.
We definitely got to avoid that. Even if we like someone that they want to start here less, we decided, well, we could use a maintenance one versus a maintenance two, and because those qualifications could be very useful. Then we decided to eliminate the request for that position, and we create another position opening if it comes down to it. And that's one of the things we found when we're trying to hire someone to help with the commercial marina, because we had someone qualified that decided to leave, and then all of a sudden we had a whole bunch of brand new people that were just starting, and we're like, wow, we need someone with more qualifications, someone that had more knowledge of the business that could really help Kent, because he was pulling his hair off in terms of thinking, oh my gosh, there are a lot of new people here,
I thought his hair just fell out.
So we decided that maybe we need to increase the qualifications of who we were hiring, and instead of hiring,
Maybe it's one.
So those are the type of things we'll probably do if we get to a point where, and there's always a little wiggle room here on the budget, because there are times when we may need to make that slight change. If we get someone that is very qualified that leaves, and all of a sudden we need to. So we'll play with that as needed.
A couple more comments on your salary scales. This is different than previous salary scales. Previous salary scales were maintenance 3, and it would go up to the end. It would be 2076 on 2139 on step 12, and then you go to maintenance 2, and it would start at 2139. So people have worked their way up through these scales. Okay. Now what you're going to see is step 7 or step 6 equates to step 1. So they have to get additional qualifications to move up a position. They don't just automatically do it. And that's the idea behind this salary scale.
And that's the idea behind training.
It's a good structure.
That's correct. So that was the whole, it's a different structure. I want to make sure you knew about that.
And hopefully what we end up doing is we're definitely advertising training to the employees. We want people to be the best they can be at their job. And also what we want to do is make sure that people have the qualifications, they get a chance to grow a position, and then we can hire for the lower position versus having to constantly hire for the higher position. I think we should help people grow, and give them an opportunity so they want to stay here at the port.
We have a long way to go though, as far as obviously, the turnover in salaries, they're related, but it's also related to the level of service that you can provide. We're one of the things that I want to focus on a little bit in the future. So we've expanded hours in order to bring in more services so that we can create more revenue. We've also expanded locations a little bit to be able to bring in more revenue. I think probably what you may run into now is you'll hear people that will complain about maybe the quality of service. It's not what they would rather see. But what we can deliver, what we can expect of a 14-hour or $14 an hour employee is different than what you can expect out of a $20 an hour employee. So this is a very important part, I think, to raising standards and then holding accountability for what, we still need to implement some changes as far as quality standards and when I talk about quality, I'm not talking about level of service. I'm talking about being able to deliver the same thing every time. You identify what it is, the thing is that you're trying to deliver very carefully, and that's your level of service. And then you focus on implementing procedures that allow you to be able to deliver that to the customer in every circumstance. And right now, we don't have a lot of that at the port. It depends on who you get is what you get. And over time, my goal, as I can spend more time on those type of things, would be to develop that ability to say, this is the standard of service we expect out of people, and this is what we're delivering basically every time. But we have to we have to basically purchase that level of labor. In my opinion, otherwise it's tough to force you. Because as you lean on people to increase their performance, eventually people are like, I don't feel like dealing with this, and then they leave. But if you're compensating them appropriately, it's part of the expectation, and you don't have as much turnover.
So you're trying to tie pay to skill, competence, and effort.
It's someplace.
Is that a radical concept?
So,
That's good.
Mark, can you just, I was trying to report, what is the overall percentage increase going to be next year for the budget? I mean, is it going to be like 6% on overall salaries?
Just on salaries and wages, total funds, it goes from 1.3 to 1.451, so it's $150,000 for the year. That's if you compare apples to apples.
Right.
That's not including the temp staff.
Okay.
What is the percentage?
150,000 on, yeah,
10%?
Yeah, they're at 11%.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then not including, okay, we're just looking for the overall increase. So.
Yeah, it's not much
No.
considering the overall and the fact that
Right.
we've been so out of scale, so off scale.
No, I have no problem catching up, I just wanted
yeah, I think it's a good exercise to ask.
So the temp staff is in for this coming budget year, but not last budget year.
It's in last budget year, but it's in general expenses,
That's right.
not under personnel and wages.
That's
So
why
in
it's
other
not
words,
here.
that adds, yeah.
Yeah. Because it would be under, I don't have that here.
Where does it compare to what we're showing for this coming fiscal year of 190?
I'd have to look at that and tell you. Last year it would have been under, materials and supplies is where it's going.
Okay, so it's hidden in there.
And then, again, I like transparency.
Me too. Thank you.
That's what it's used for. I should have it.
I'll get you that number, just so you have it.
Yeah, fill in blanks, curiosity.
And so there's efficiencies built into all of these personnel things. How are we on our computer equipment? And there's always been talk about there's got to be a better way to charge for a stack of nets.
Well,
You know.
with the current systems we have,
Mhm.
we're stuck with the new system, it's the way we do it. Okay, we can't change that. What we've changed is, instead of doing them once a month, we're doing them at least weekly,
Mhm.
which helps our closing our books at the end of the month.
Cool.
And we can do projections quicker, because we know what our revenues are for the month. So they're done about a week after the services that we
That's great.
with the current system, we're doing transfers between funds yesterday. After an hour of working on it, Mark Harris came to me and said, well, I think I have it. I think this is the way we're going to do it. Took him an hour just to figure out how to do it, even though he's done it before.
Right.
And it took us another half hour to get it done and make sure it balanced.
Right.
So that's some of what we're fighting right now.
Yeah, that's around every corner.
Yeah, it is. It is. And given the budget situation, I don't expect it to change anytime soon. But we are finding some efficiencies. Once I get the new Windows 10's computer, we will start storing credit cards in QuickBooks. Because we'll be PCI compliant at that point. When we do that, I'm going to save 2 to 3 hours every month just processing credit cards. But I have to get those Windows 10 computers. I'm not doing Windows 7 other systems.
So we're moving along.
We're moving along and finding different ways and ways to help us.
Great.
So looking at all these step increases, right now there are the whole staff at on average relative. What steps are they at? I mean, would we expect to keep seeing people move to these steps over the next decade, or are they already close to 12?
it varies from position to position, how long they've been on the job, and a whole bunch of other things. What we try to do is to make sure, again, that they were at least above the beginning point of the survey. Because in the survey, some people were so off scale that it was just like, oh, we need to bring this person. So some people got larger increases and put them literally from step 1 to step 7, let's say, just because of where they were so off, you know, where now some people that have been here longer also got more bump. And some people were actually pretty close to that scale, so they got less of an increase. So it, again, it varies
It does vary.
from, yeah.
Yeah, even with this, there are some people that will not be at the minimum requirements. But this is what we told them, that we expected to be able to get them to a continuing basis.
Yeah.
So we're trying to meet our commitment to them and trying to get them so they're encouraged by what we're doing.
The goal is that no one in the entire staff will be below what the survey required them to be.
And what happens if you reach step 12?
We're stuck.
You are stuck, you get
Good job.
CPI, you get a new
Well,
job.
the concept, in my view, is that either the person will grow on their job and they won't have that problem, except for me, because I don't have way to grow on my job. But
That is the concept.
if somebody say they're maintenance too, and they're growing on their steps, and they reach the top, and they have really proved that they have enough skills to be in maintenance 1, well, eventually we're going to put them in that position, and then they will start on maintenance 1, and they may fall, even though they're on step 12, they may fall on step 7. This is just thrown out there. I'm not sure what the two compares, but that's basically it. So you get an opportunity for growth.
What about, do you give increases for just in general inflation or not? If you hit 12, you don't get an increase no matter what happens.
It's every day we try to adjust by CPI.
Oh, you do?
It's been 2% historically, but you'll see I put the CPI information in here, because that's important.
That moves the whole chart
The
up.
whole chart.
The whole block of it moves up.
Correct, every year we do that.
Every year the steps will increase automatically by
Yeah, no, okay, right. Every, yeah, the dollar amounts in every block increase.
So that person, even if they're on the 12, they will increase to the new 12.
Yeah, I understand.
But they stay on 12.
No, I understand. I understand.
But a lot of this too, it has to do with also with performance and things like that. So any increases you give someone, it's going to be usually what you look for is a combination of cost of living and performance. So even though that person may get the cost of living, their performance may not increase 100% what we budget for them to increase because the performance was a little wacky. But sometimes, we hope everybody gets, what they're going into, but that varies and it's pretty normal.
So do you only move a step back here, or if you're a great performance person, man, we don't want to lose them, give them more money. Can you do it on a case-by-case basis?
As long as we have enough funds in budget. And that's why we try to put a bit of a contingency there, didn't we?
Yes, there's contingency,
Yeah.
there's some contingency.
We try to always put some contingency for promotions and for a situation like that. We just need to make sure that we have, otherwise the best we can do is tell the person, we would like to increase you, but you're going to have to wait until the next budget season. We're not going to be pulling their money from somewhere else. So. Any questions on that?
So, yeah, well, I'll do one last one then. So once we catch up, this catching up process, then increases will be moving from these steps according to performance, right? And, but there won't be any major expectations of major prop changes in salary requirements.
Hopefully
Unless the
not.
market needs some dramatic
Right.
changes.
No, hopefully not. What we're trying to do is really bring things to where the expectations are, and the increases will be just normal increases like any other place where you put a certain amount for performance, and then we're trying to figure out, well, we think this year CPI is going to be 3%, so we come up with that amount plus a certain amount for performance, and do you have anything to add to that?
No, that's, and we'll look at last year's CPI, adjust based on CPI, and we'll go from there.
You know, one thing I've thought about as we've done these surveys, but I haven't had a chance to bring up yet, that the board has never made a decision at what level we choose to compete for labor. So this last survey that we got done was done at the local level. We have never made a decision if we want to be the employer of choice locally, at the state level, or at the national level, and what positions those are. So you could wind up, with a situation where there are a lot of positions that locally here on the coast you don't get paid as well as you do over in the valley. So I think one of our consternations with turnover in some cases has been that you will leave, people will make that move because just for example, let's say you get paid better in the valley as a forklift operator than you do out here. It's just something to bear in mind. I think that the survey results that we had were done at the local level. So we're competing well locally, but in many cases, certainly not nationally, and in other cases, not at the state level either.
That is true. We did talk a little bit about that, and if you look at our report, because you gotta ask yourself, who are we gonna lose our employees to? And for some situations will be for other ports. And you look, for instance, at the Port of Astoria, and some of those positions, the operations side of it, they pay way better than here. So if people want to move over there, there's nothing we can do because we're not even prepared. So we may come back later and try to make some adjustment to certain positions. But this time, if we do, it won't be an overall thing because I think most of the positions will be pretty well set. It will be for particular areas that we still find that we are having a hard time competing.
Okay, so this work you've done, in general, should be able to provide the port with a professional, who said that before? Staff, quality staff, professional staff. But you may discover, there may be one or two where you're not being able to be competing statewide, nationally, in order to have the kind of quality staff that you need to fill that position. Right, that's what I'm hearing. So in general, we think you're on the right track. But there may be a couple cases here where you're not competitive.
Yeah, in the future budgets, you may see us requesting a little bit more to address some of those areas that Aaron is talking about. But again, it's not going to be an ask anywhere close to what we ask right now.
I heard there's other ways to do it too. Like one of the easiest ones I can tell you, I've done a lot of research on is crane operators. ONET is the website that you can use in the Department of Labor. It publishes a bunch of statistics. And you can look at crane operators and nationwide, and the way we're structured right now, we're nowhere near. And it compares directly to port crane operators, it's a very good comparison. But you could easily address that if we needed to by assigning a specific hourly rate for our internal labor, not necessarily by the position, but by the qualification. So I spend 5 hours in the crane today, I get paid 5 hours at the crane rate, whatever that is. That's one of those things that I have definitely thought about for a long time that I think we could do that would help us out a lot. I think right now we've got a situation that's workable. It's better now than what it was last year, the year before, but in the future that might be something that we would
Something we need to discuss discuss, but this point in time, one thing we could do is hire them at a high position if we really need those skills, because some of those skills cover, say, position 1 versus position 2, So, but it is something, we still have a lot to research and create a good system. For right now, I think what we've done, cover things for this year just to get going. But moving forward, we certainly will be analyzing way more what are our needs here, including that the crane operation issue that we certainly had.
Roughly, future, like right now, this 11% to catch up, but roughly in the long run future, you'd expect to see overall kind of salary increases at maybe 4 to 5% rate, in that range.
I would say 5% is a typical because we're thinking about the CPI plus.
Yeah, 2% for step increases.
Yeah.
Okay. Boy, that's a lot better than the university.
Yeah, but you already start with higher.
No, we don't. They did not.
Any more questions?
Steps and wages, I guess under rates and fees.
Well, we talked a bit about it already, so I don't know much more.
I have a question. I didn't see it handily, Aaron. What was the increase last year for moorage for fishing vessels at the terminal?
At the terminal, it was 68%. It went from whatever it's in here, what last year's rate was, but it was a 68% increase.
68.
68%.
And the other, like the commercial marina, was at 5.3 years.
International terminal pays 45.
I think the percentage increase in the commercial marina was more like 10. There was someplace in there, it was 10 or,
On the edge was 10%.
yeah.
That
because-
included the pedestals.
That was specifically because we were looking to put the incremental revenue towards pedestal work.
There was a lot of buy-in, as we talked about earlier. That was a good approach.
Yeah, the 68% increase, it was the same thing. That was something that I sat and did a lot of work on, looking at different rates and then talking with people, and the consensus on that one was it's a big increase, but we didn't get a massive amount of pushback on it. And I think, Gil, you asked the question at the budget committee meeting last year. Is it going to? Are we going to actually realize the revenue, or are we going to cause people to vote with their feet? So far, we have been realizing this. So far, we have realized the revenue. I at that point in time, I was pretty sure that we were going to be able to do that, just because I've done a lot of work on it, and I think we're going to. I think minus outlier influences, I think we're going to be okay.
Well, there's a lot more services you can get. Well, services. You can fuel your boat there. The vendors can drive right out.
So the international terminal has 124,000, my projected, has 124,000 in increased revenue versus 124,000, and the commercial marina about 90,000 increase.
Because the rates and fees at the terminals left a $220,000 deficit on debt load. And so that extra 120 brings that down.
We've also done a few more. We've done a little bit more services out there this year.
The squid.
So this year, we haven't done for this fiscal year. Squid is yet to come. So we hopefully we'll get good weather, and hopefully they will still be able to make it as they planned, and hopefully we'll see that. But we have offloaded a few more crab boats, and we're charging them wharfage rates, so they're getting paid, or they're getting charged in excess of what the cargo terminal tariff rates are. We're charging them in accordance with the tariff, but because it's a lower volume, they're charging we're charging 2.5 cents to 3.5 cents a pound, depending on which market they're going to.
I see.
So,
And is it tariff down at the White Sox?
we've never changed that. There still isn't a wharfage charge.
Well, that's interesting, so no real blowback on that.
At the terminal, no. And the reason why is because the added benefit of going out there in the space that they can have
Right.
available to them, we
The
have
trucks
certain,
can
there's
turn.
certain people that want to use that spot, but it's been very light. There's just a few of them this year. I think revenue-wise, I don't know where we're at on it, but it's someplace around the realm of $20,000
Right.
just in workage.
It's good to see the tariff rate, and it's good to see the dock being used.
Well, it's what it is it's revenue that we would not have otherwise realized. This is one of those things that I've seen. We've done numerous different things to increase revenue. That's one of them that we otherwise wouldn't get that, because if you think of the capacity of the hoist dock during various fisheries, it's at capacity. You can't do any more in the hoist dock, basically. So we basically added an extra hoist, and we've charged appropriately for the use of that hoist. We're not charging appropriately for use of the hoist in the commercial marine still. It's tough for us to address that because it's never been done before, and we don't know what kind of impact it's going to have on the services. But that hoist we're charging appropriately for, and so it is getting wharfage and services, and much of the services have been done after hours. So we're charging a higher rate for that because we have to in order to get the help and to be able to perform it. So.
It's been a few years, but we spent like $25,000 to redo the pavement at the hoist dock with no compensation from the semis that ruined the pavement. And now we get compensation from the axle fees to pay for pavement.
That's been another. So there's an example of us charging for a service that previously was never charged for.
Right.
It was basically being done for free. We established that rate. Again, it was a lot of work to try and figure out how can we charge a rate that, on an individual basis, is not going to hit you very hard. You know, it's a low charge if as long as you have a moderate to low volume use, you're not going to notice it very much. When you go to a high volume use, though, like let's say it was running log trucks in and out of the terminal, that rate won't work for that because that's a high enough volume that it would price people out of it. So that's why, you know, for leaseholders and stuff, we try to set that, you know, come up with a different rate. Sand piles get the same thing. People that are coming in and getting sand off the pile are getting $7 an axle, but depending on the volume, if they get enough, it makes our sand more expensive than anybody. So we have to modulate that and be careful.
Well, it seems to be working pretty good.
I just have, I guess, a comment from the discussion earlier. If we're discounting so much that we're losing money operationally on those annuals, don't we have to adjust those? I mean, we can't lose money, right?
And
I know there's gonna be pushback, but it just seems like that makes sense. Not every level.
yeah, I hear you, okay, because Aaron and I have had this
Yeah.
discussion. We're already increasing it 10% this year. Are we going to increase the annual additional above that to bring that down? Or should we instead of doing 10% for the lower two tiers, should we do a lesser discount to start bringing them up? Those are two options we have. Right now, I've implemented it the way Aaron gained agreement from the commercial fishermen.
From last year's
From last
conversation.
year's conversation. So, in the recreation arena, it's a little different, we don't have an agreement. So I've started shifting that balance a little bit for the annual warrant holders to pay more. For the liveaboards, any new liveaboards do not get annual, they only get semi-annual. That way we actually don't lose money.
So it's all tied to last year's agreement, which
Yeah.
I support.
And the difference on that is again, it's always the eternal question: are we actually going to realize the revenue of the increase? And it's hard to identify over here. We have to kind of wait and see how it impacts, and then plus we won't know how it impacts or how it's impacted by other outlying factors that aren't necessarily related to this. But it's, I think that you're right. We're gonna again, we didn't get a lot of pushback on the previous major rate increase because we tied it to things that we're going to be able to do for, we're investing in. And I think that if we continue to do that, we can get to the point where we, like we've talked a lot about this, there are private marinas all over the place. There wouldn't be private marinas if it was impossible for you to manage it and have it actually make sense. The problem that we have isn't necessarily that we're not charging enough. It's that we're not charging enough and our facilities are not good condition. If we can get our facilities brought up, and that's the imperative, that's why it's imperative for us to address some of these projects, because if we get the projects done, we can deliver the services and at a level of facility that people are going to say, you know what, I will happily pay you, again, remember, when we're talking mortgage rates, we're talking for a commercial operation, it is a very small part of their fixed cost. And if we can deliver what they need, and they will happily do that. Over here, it's a little harder, but same concept, same exact concept that we can apply over here and still work.
Get a good track record delivering for a few years until this agreement of step increases is over, and maybe call it an adjustment or something.
Honestly, so if you look at the Port Dock 7 project, which is years out being completed, but if we can provide a facility that is actually what people need over there, it would be a prime time for us to all at once adjust and say, if you want to come in here, this is the way it's going to look in the future, this is the way it looks now. And I think we're going to find that it's going to be, people are going to want to be there, especially the way that it's configured in relation to the shore. It's a much better place to run a boat operation out of over at Port Dock 7 than Port Dock 5 is. And the only reason why Port Dock 5 is so popular right now is because it always has been, and it's in better shape than what Port Dock 7 is. But if we can give folks what they need, like in terms of bilge pump out service, decent facilities, heads, showers, a few other amenities here and there, plus docks that are adequate, I think we're in good shape. That's my opinion.
So this is, Jim, this is consistent with the discussion about communication and discussions and planning. So public relations here is critical to prepare the people, so our clients are participating in those discussions and see where the port's going, and our communications suggest where we're going, and it makes sense to them. Because if you stun them with a very large increase, you never want to surprise anyone. You want to provide them with the information so they can see where things are going, and they're not surprised, and you get some early feedback. Because they're almost participating in that planning as long-term clients of the port.
I sat at a lot of those fishermen user group meetings last year, and they were very productive.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that you also get a lot of stakeholders seeing the new dock and configuration and like OSU, gosh, could we put a little array at the end of the blah blah, that they can get grants, they can kick in for,
One other thought I had, this gets back to this workshop idea, but has there ever been a Newport workshop on the long-term support for marine industries long-term? And I think about that in terms of all the elements of this port, right? Whether it be, they call it the large infrastructure. Right? That includes all the key players here. And has there ever been a group discussion when it comes to the table and has that discussion, including the fishing industry, the research community, the port, to think long term and to see whether everyone's on the same page or has a similar vision? This is a thought.
I don't think that I'm aware of it, but Aaron may have a different idea here. At least, I don't know, been here 10 months, but typically those conversations have been more over here, and you talk to different agencies that support us, for instance, about, and when you have a project, they want to see long-term, and they want to see sometimes long-term for that area that, is supporting And it's difficult to bring everyone to the table, but that is something we could look into it. And that is one of the reasons we bring people like with the regional solution, because you're dealing with people from several different agencies. They are talking, where are you going, with this, or generally, like last time we didn't have a project in specific, but we are talking generally of the port. But certainly, it is something, if we pick a subject, an area, and we can bring some of those agencies and some of the community, the representative of the community, maybe the representative of Longshore, some key players to talk about where the expectation, because maybe the expectation of one party is not the expectation of the other. So,
Yeah, I think that the further out you go, the more consensus you get.
yeah.
Yes.
And then you can work it backwards and plan. 100 years is not too far. That's kind of where I have a tendency to look, is 100 years out, and then 50 years inside of that, and then 50 years inside of that. And the importance of that is like I was just talking to somebody who did a lot of work for the Port of Tacoma, and they've got a 100-year plan. And so it keeps you from chasing squirrels in the meantime when there's fluctuations and people are like, what we need to do is turn this area into housing. Well, sorry, we've got a 100-year plan. Our vision as a port in 100 years is not to turn that into housing, even though we can make money in the next 20 years. We're working on a different trajectory. It's a visioning effort that then all of your shorter-term plans work toward that long-term goal. And I would love to be able to do that because, and people, a lot of folks have a hard time because they'll bring up the challenges of today and say, well, I don't know what you don't know what it's going to look like in 100 years, but you can make very broad statements about where you want to be. And I was concerned when I went up and talked to those permitting agencies about permits for that Port Rock 7 and fishing pier project we were talking about. A lot of people are concerned about environmental changes today and how that's going to impact. And what I explained to them is I said, we don't need to, I understand all those concerns, but think about 100 years ago, what fisheries were driving this area and what they look like. And then say, are those fisheries still like that? The answer is no, much of them aren't. But fishing is still a major industry here because it adapts. Those industries adapt. And the same thing can be said about changes for example, in the cargo industry, the constraints that we have today, we got to think about where's that industry going in 100 years and what's it going to look like, I think. If we want that to be an important piece of this area, we got to think that far out because our infrastructure lasts at least half that long.
What I was just going to say, Paul, since you're on the Vision 2040, that might be a good group to think about partnering in leadership in terms of bringing the players together, in terms of long-term economic thinking. That's critical to the marine port. So I'll chat with you about that. We can talk about that.
Yeah, that would be very interesting. And again, I find that, it's hard to do something like that port-wide because we have so many different roles for different things. I mean, you're bringing industries here, focusing more on commercial fishing, focusing on the terminal, and focusing on recreation. They're completely different things, right? So I think it's important. I haven't worked very much in one single area, but it reminds me working with the airport, because in my previous school we had an airport, and FAA actually required that you do a master plan for the airport. And that master plan looks at least 20 years out. Usually focus on 10 years, but you definitely look at it into 20 years out. And why? Well, you don't want to, you say you have a neighborhood, and usually the city got to buy in into that master plan. Because what happened is you have a zoning that you have to consider, there's an airport here. Well, there's commercial fishing here, you got to consider that. It's the same thing. Because say you're trying to grow your airport, you want to bring larger airplanes, well, you got to make sure your runway highway protection zone covers that, so people are not all of a sudden putting buildings in this area, and the city is agreeing, yeah, you shouldn't put buildings in this area, so I'm not gonna allow other people. So you, all of a sudden, you do have the city working with you and in your strategy of how you wanna grow. But you gotta tell them, how do you wanna grow? Where do we wanna be, housing in this area, it's a no-no, because we gotta protect jobs and business, and because sometimes there are cities that are literally bedroom communities. All they have is homes, and people gotta go somewhere else to work, and we don't want that to happen here. So what do you do? How do you do to protect this area? So it's definitely important that we have the stakeholders participating in our vision many years forward, because then you gotta protect that area, if that's what you see you want it to happen. So you don't get one person that come with this wild idea of doing something completely different that nobody is in tune with. So we can certainly set some of those workshop focusing maybe. We should do one for each area and see what is our vision for those areas, and invite different stakeholders to it.
So we'll chat about that.
Sure.
Aaron, did I hear you correctly say earlier that the port's not being compensated adequately at the hoist docks or something?
Yeah, so we don't charge wharfage at the hoist dock, and so usually that's where you pay for the weight that goes across the rail. We're getting, I believe that we're covering our fee, so the labor forklift, the tie-up time for the boats coming in and then going out, I think we're getting that covered. We should be charging some sort of wharfage fee in order so that we can undertake the replacement projects that got to get done over time. That's my opinion. I had done some numbers a couple years ago on that. Have you done any work on a waste dock yet, Mark? Probably not. That's the way it looked to me. I don't have numbers to back it up sitting in front of me right now. I had some numbers worked up previously, but yeah, the missing piece there is wharfage, I think.
Which is very common for most folks to charge wharfage, especially if you provide them service.
So you're saying the fees and the charges, so are they covering the depreciation and the wear and tear on the equipment, or are we just breaking even on that?
I think we're covering that. You've done a little bit of work so far.
We've done a little work, not much. We're covering the cost right now, because what we're doing is we're actually leasing the forklifts.
Right.
So we're covering our costs right now. The question is,
Which piece of equipment? So the cranes.
On the cranes?
Yeah, no.
Okay.
But the thing is again, the cranes it's one of those old pieces of equipment that are hard to value. So it's again, like I've used this example before. It's like a farmer who has one tractor that's 40 or 50 years old, or a fisherman who has a 38-foot double-ended salmon trawler, who has everything they have wrapped up in that. The boat itself is really not worth monetarily that much, but it's what keeps them going. So to them, it's worth a lot more. And that's kind of where the dock-mounted cranes that we have, there's better ways for us to deliver that service. One of the things we've talked about is a smaller mobile crane. Because if we've got a smaller mobile crane in there, as long as we have some place to house it, because we got to keep the maintenance cost down on that thing, because putting a crane outside around here is a bad idea. So if you got a smaller mobile crane, and then you pull those things out and put two hoists in there, you add capacity to be able to bring more product across the dock. And then when it comes to gear swaps, we got a mobile crane that can go in there and do the work. The question, though, that we have yet to answer is whether or not that capacity, are we really going to see that business? And I think a big variable here is Steve Webster's working on that dock over there. Now, I've talked to all of our independent buyers. All of them uniformly have said, even if you have that, and then you also have community ice and whatever Ron does out there, they said, look, we're not looking to move away from the port, we want to expand our business. And so all of them have said, we will continue to use the port, we'll just expand our business more. But then you get down to how many boats do we have that can provide them with that. And then you go one step further out from that, the question is how many permits are there, and is there biomass that can come in? And I'm, getting into an area that I'm not as well versed, and it's debatable.
And then those are things that I would like to see. Not because see when I look into doing a plan for the international terminal, I don't look at it just bringing the well-desired big cargo. That's great. We want to do that too. But in general, the operations and what kind of equipment do we need over there? Shall we invest in buying versus leasing? Does that make sense for us? Are we going to generate enough revenues, maybe more revenues by having this or that than what we have currently? Because it may be expensive, but maybe in the long run, it's a better off thing to do, to spend the money in doing that. And again, if we can show those plans to our, partners, we can maybe get some more funds because we have a plan. So those are additional things I would like to incorporate into that plan. Do an economic analysis. What do we need to do to be a good operational port?
Well, the reason my question is we break even on a lot of things and maybe just have 2 or 3% plus or minus on each side, and that's not getting us anywhere. We're basically treading water. And
Exactly.
kick a can against the wall, and so I think we need to look part of it in the future about how we can start increasing revenue and paying for infrastructure replacement and fixing stuff.
If you think, so here's an example. Obviously, it varies species by species. The idea of wharfage, it really can't. It's a rate that works differently than all of our other rates because it's all about what's in the margin on that particular fishery and what the market's doing that year. So you can't set a schedule. We can set a target. We can set a target for revenue based on what we need to have off of the cost infrastructure, depreciation, replacement, things like that. But as far as what we can charge people, for example, if we were to charge 1 penny for every pound of whatever comes across the dock, that might work for that's going to work great for squid because squid's a high dollar fishery. But all the slime meal that comes in, never works. So it has to be different based on what comes in, and it can't be so much that we push out competition because when you lose competition, what happens is we don't actually have a large variety of independent buyers. Well, we do. It just depends on the volume of whichever they're doing. But the more competition you have in the independent buying area, the less they cut into the margins of the fishery. The less competition you have, the more they can charge, they can pass their costs straight through to the fishermen, the less profit comes to the fishermen. It's kind of the way it works. So if we can bring in more competition in the independent buying area and provide the capacity at the hoist, provided we can get enough boats to bring enough product through that way and then they can take it to market, then wharfage is a very, very good thing for the port.
But that's acceptable because, if you look at cargo in general, that's how it works. You're going to get, I'm used to liquid bulk, but you're going to get way more for crude oil than you will do for ethanol, for instance, because a product that has a higher margin. So it is expected that you can play with that based on the product, and it is certainly something we can look into.
Once Webster's and Halls get up, I think we also need to be considerate that we can't be competing with them because we can subsidize ourselves. We can apply for things that they can't, and that's one thing I've heard is the port competing with private industry because we can't be different, and we need to make sure that in the years down the road that our rates are competitive and not undercutting private industry.
Absolutely. I think if as a public port, our job is to work with our partners and developers, not trying to undercut them. Anything we do there, we gotta work hand in hand with them and make sure that, as a matter of fact, one of the issues that I had in my previous community I worked with is that the port sometimes charged so low for the industrial land that developers used to get frustrated with them because they couldn't charge more because if they didn't, they wouldn't get anything. And I think we need to set, a certain standard where we're working with our community. We will be competitors to an extent because it's just the way it works, but at the same time, we should be partners in trying to work together. And we've been working pretty well with Steve Webster and with Rhonda's on their projects, trying to figure out where things are going. So I don't think that's an issue, and I don't want it to become an issue at any point. I believe we have enough good communication with them that, and if they come to us with some concerns, we'll listen.
Just a quick dumb question. Wharfage fees are based on some proportion of weight or value? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, weight. Right. So if you look at in our tariff out at the terminal, there's a list of commodities, and each commodity has a different cost for the user to be able to pass that across the rail on the dock. It's the main meat and potatoes of how you make revenue on some sort of dock usage. There's always dockage or moorages in there. Services on the, I should say it's meat and potatoes. The service is really a big portion of it. But without having that right there, we are foregoing an awful lot of revenue that we really should be able to capitalize on somehow. But there's a list, and then there's other commodities, which is a catch-all. But then within there's language that allows us to be able to negotiate what that rate is based on whatever the arrangements are. And generally, it's related somehow to volume. So the tariff rates are set out there for really high volume. In comparison, some of these fisheries offloading live crab is compared to logs, a really tiny volume. So you charge more. You charge by the pound instead of by the ton.
And one thing we need to consider as we move forward in the future is as we are better able to provide more service, say we have more equipment, we have more cranes, we have more hoists, we have more, obviously all that needs an operator. So then we probably would also, because we're increasing our income, therefore we are able to afford more employees working on those, so we need people to operate those. So those are things to keep in mind. So those type of things eventually will increase gradually, because even though we are providing more service, at one point we need to buy more equipment, we need to hire more people to operate. But then in the long run, that could be a real good source of revenue for the port.
And I would all about hoist stock cranes. There is in your capital equipment a hoist stock crane. The current cranes are Vietnam era cranes off the ship. To give you the example of the age, it takes about 1,430 hours to make a crane.
And they get very low, relatively low usage. But it's a vital source that we need it, because that's what they use to put crab tanks in those. Crab tanks, outriggers, stuff like that, put machines, it's a vital service to the public. It just, it doesn't really draw a great deal of revenue whatsoever.
So, we're talking about doing more services and more equipment. Have you done any analysis about whether we should budget that out, or we should at least have those services out? Because there's going to come to a point where we have this huge operation going down there, but do we really want to take that cost out? And would it be better for the port to lease those services out?
Yeah, that's part of this plan, to kind of do an analysis, because absolutely, I don't want to just go and buy more equipment and hire more people if we're not getting the return. It has to have an ROI, and that makes sense. So we will be looking into that before Some stuff we have to literally just replace as is because to maintain the level of service we're providing right now. But as we increase those type of things, those type of services, I don't want to just increase for the sake of increasing it. It has to,
Right.
you know, it's similar to, okay, we put more annual margins in and we get more customers. Is that increasing our revenues? No, it's just actually lowering because all of a sudden we're giving 75% discount. That makes no sense, right? Likewise, it's like, is this really increasing our revenues or it's actually increasing our costs because all of a sudden we are providing a service that we're not getting any return. We don't want to do that. So,
Yeah, on the specific hoist that we're talking, that is a fixed hoist, correct?
The cranes?
The cranes.
Yeah.
So that would be more difficult to do that with.
I think what you're talking about would be the potential of outsourcing the labor in the area, and that's I've mentioned this before, but the outsourcing question is a very standard business question, and there are standard answers and scenarios to things that you would outsource for. There are things that like security is a great example of one. We are not in the realm. See, the city is more equipped to, like for example, when they're thinking about whether or not they're going to bring on board a parking enforcement officer, the standard competencies that the city deals with, police is one of it. So it's easier to pass somebody over there in some cases than it is to outsource, because when you outsource something, you lose control. So you're not directly controlling at the service point, and it is extremely important that if you are in the business of providing dock services to the public, if you outsource your primary the thing that's bringing you revenue, and you got to remember you're losing a degree of control in that, and it would be akin to, say, McDonald's outsourcing their kitchen, and it's not always a very good idea because you may, the school bus nationwide transportation industry, school buses and school cafeterias are a good example of that. Have you seen an increase or a decrease in the quality of those services over the last 40 years as that change has occurred? Those are the questions that you would want to look at and consider. And it's the reality in some cases of outsourcing. Sometimes it's a good idea. When you don't organically maintain those competencies within your organization, that's a great outsourcing thing. But when you do organically maintain those competencies, you really have to look at it carefully and do a lot of analysis. I would be willing to bet, whichever. The numbers will come out where they come out. I'm just saying, it's speculating. It would be interesting to see what they come up with. So.
I really appreciate that you all are working on long-term viability. If we could boil our mission statement, vision statement, values down to what they are at the core, it's long-term viability and value to the community. And I appreciate that the three of you all are looking at that in concert with your particular skill sets. That's great. And I don't have 5 things that I want to give to you all as what I think we should focus on. I think you all are doing a good job and really looking at the nuts and bolts and numbers and where the opportunities are. And I look forward, as we go through the budget process and hearing your all's arguments. And I know you have capital projects and there's some priorities given, but it's not fully sort of vetted out there. And I understand about putting a bunch of things on there, then we have to ultimately approve them, but I look forward to hearing from you all, from staff. Okay, here's the things that we really have to do, either because something's falling apart or this is going to make us money. I think you all are far more well versed in making those decisions than I am, because you all are living it 24/7. And I look forward to hearing those compelling arguments and rationale. But I really appreciate all three of you from your expertise in looking at the long-term viability and not just covering some costs, but we're losing out over the long run. I really like the discussion and where you're going with this.
I think the next items will hit a little bit more on some of the, at least the capital improvement Of course, if you have any other comments on the management, that is part of the summary that, and how we handling finance in general. But the capital improvement, we do have a list of things that we went through, and I don't know, Sarah, if you want to feel ready for us to get into.
I think we've done a good job going through the rest of the agenda at this point. So you have the capital improvement, starts on page 63.
55.
Capital improvement, yeah.
We're missing like 3 pages.
Yeah.
You're really not missing 3 pages. You're missing 2 pages that you pulled out.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
The staff.
Here's the thing. So I added the capital improvement plan portion of the strategic plan. This is just as it was put together last year of the priorities of the capital improvement plan. And the 3 of us will try to work through out of that what items we feel like we should try to move forward. I did add this capital improvement priorities per staff, but I removed it because I did that before I went on my trip. Meanwhile, Mark had done some updates, including some of the updates that I actually requested, which making sure that all of our matches had at least 20%, because some of them were less. And I know we're not going to get anything with less than 20% match, so we added that. So the area you see on page 61, it's pretty much what I had on my capital improvement plan priorities. So it's basically the same thing, except that it was updated. So instead of repeating myself and having information is not updated, I asked Karen to remove those. So we can probably look on page 61 forward, and that's where you're going to see the capital project cost, which is the stuff that we have worked on that we think is priority for us. Some of those, as you may see, it will help us be more efficient, and in the long run probably save us some money by being efficient, such as replacing the server, the softwares, and things like that. And then you're going to see some stuff that it's been on the budget for many years, but it never came to fruition. One of them is the headquarters building, and as you can see, the cost keeps going up, and things like that if you don't get it done. And that was the trailer that we're in today was supposed to be a temporary building, and it's been temporary for over 8 years now. And
How long?
it's
At least-
8 years, right
Oh,
there.
8 years.
Yeah. So what happened is we are in very, very tight quarters, no space for meetings, and we anytime you have any meeting, you try to close the door. It's very claustrophobic, and you have to meet in my room, and there's no privacy for any conversation there. In a situation right now, for instance, with the coronavirus, you're trying to keep a distance from folks, and you just can't. And you try to bring in anybody and a consultant to do any work for us over there. They have no space for. We considered getting an intern this year, which we could use, but we have no space for an intern. We have only one restroom. So there are a lot of things that it's just not appropriate for us to have. And besides, we get to a point now where the building is starting to require some maintenance. So the question is, are we going to start putting money into something that we are leasing, that is not even ours, or what are we going to do? So we do have the space for it. There's already a design, which I look at. We may want to redo the design because that design is for a building that it won't support future growth. It provides a building for today's need, but it doesn't support any future growth. So if we hire more people, we have no place to put them in there. So we may have to grow a little bit from what was originally anticipated. And then we also heard from some partners that there may be some interest in leasing space, such as Customs and ODFW and other, maybe there are other agencies here. The number that we have here, it's just a very rough number, and this is based on some of the other buildings that my previous board built, which last time when we got the design done, the estimate was very low. I don't believe by any means that would cost only anywhere from $600,000 to $800,000. It would be way more than that. So anyhow, at this point, we still need to go get some actual engineering estimates to get a better idea. We have already had some slight talks to some of our partners, such as Business Oregon. I also intend to go to USDA because they do provide loans if it's a public building that was, I think, 75% occupied by a public entity. Usually they have very low interest, sometimes zero interest, depending on what you're dealing with. So we'll be looking into that. But I really think we should look seriously about getting this building done. I know there are always other priorities. They're always going to have priorities. That's the problem. You know, we always going to have a dock to build and some other things to do here in the port, and that becomes constantly a low priority. But again, something needs to be addressed, and it's not because I want a nicer office. It's literally looking at the way staff is working there. It's not very easy to work in a building like that. So, and then moving forward, we can talk about other projects as we may desire. But the other main priority, obviously, is the plans that we need to do for the Dock 7. You know, we really need to address Dock 7. And of course, we already got the EDA grant, and we need to move the funds that we're supposed to spend this year to next year, because that is already something that we agreed on getting the grant, so we need to make sure we have the funds to pay for it. I'll let Mark take on from there. Sorry, Mark, I kind of ran over some of the...
We're at 11:50. Meeting scheduled at 8:00. So I'm going to really ask you what questions you have. Aaron and I can really hit on those. For the server, the administrative side, that's a 2012 server. It could fail anytime. If it fails, it's going to cost us at least 2 weeks, and then we don't know how much data we'll have lost. So I think that's why I put it on here as critical. This would provide a failover system, so if one server goes down, another server's running, and we don't need data that way. That's what I'm proposing in that. Headquarters use the accounting software. We talked a lot about it. We get a little bit of manual intro to service tickets from my staff to be taken care of directly from operational staff as they would unload the boats and load the boats. Really create efficiency. But again, looking at what's happening this year, I'd have to say that's maybe a secondary priority. But that is, in the end, you'll have to let us know what you think that is. And I accept that. What questions do you have that you would like answered on these projects?
Where are we going to put the mic?
I tried to identify that. So you're going to see a payback column in there. That's if we expect that someone else is going to help us pay for a new facility or whatever we're doing, that's a payback. And so essentially, in the long run, it may not cost for anything. So the headquarters building, you see a $2.4 million. We expect if we have tenants that they will help us pay for the headquarters building. That's the idea. tried to identify, if we're gonna get a grant, where are we gonna get it from? We may not have all the grants listed here, but we're still looking at it.
A couple things that I wanted to point out is I really do that we get Commercial Marine Port Dock 5 electrical engineering as the first step toward this is what we've been talking about, those raised rates in the commercial marina. I think it's the reason why that's in there is again going back, if we can get some grant revenue to help us do that project would be great, but we will not get the grant revenue more than likely if we don't have some plans to be able to say this is what we need to get done. Because we will get asked directly, you know, okay, well, can you do it? And, you know, I'll be asking specific questions, and the grant application will require data that an engineer can only provide. In South Beach, the study on the road seawall gets us, so our first guess was a $5.5 million repair project. They're over there drilling right now to get geotechnical samples. I mean, that's work that was paid for by the EPA, but we need that data so that we know what the scope. We don't really know for sure what the scope of that project is. We have a low degree of certainty right now on that $5.5 million project. And we need that, again, we need that data, we need that geotechnical data and the analysis of the concrete slabs in order to get grant funding, because there's a bunch of questions I won't be able to answer. Also in South Beach, the electric load center, which is one we pushed off from last year, if you guys remember, because we had a wide array of estimated costs on it. This number is a good number. I got a fair amount of work done this summer by an electrical outfit that does marinas and docks, and they looked at it for quite a while, and this is a good estimate. Again, those things are originally equipment from the marina, and if we lose one of them, we'll lose that whole dock, and there's no banding that we can put on it. So that's pretty critical. There are, a lot of stuff that's critical, and going back to Walter's point originally, if we get behind on some of this stuff now that are going to take years for us to do, we have to look at where we're going to be when we can actually start the construction. What state is it going to be at that point in time? And looking at, so the most critical facilities that we have right now, those being the closest to failure, that would take them completely out of service. First is the Port Dock 5 pier. We've got that in plans. We've got a grant for that. Second, I think, is Port Dock 1, which is not in here because it's not really a revenue earner for us, and it's not used very widely. Third, I would estimate to be Port Dock 7. Port Dock 7 is extremely important because of its current capacity and its potential future capacity. And that's my short. That's my short sell on the two projects that I can talk about.
Yeah, there's the forklift in here, which we're having to put a lot of maintenance into the current forklift because it's at that age. This would, and we have been paying the lease on that, so it's going to replace an existing lease. So the annual cost for a new lease is $12,000. That would be offset some by the current lease, so it would be less than $20,000.
And the added hours of service that we've done that's brought us more revenue has, accelerated the degradation of those assets. So we tried to buy one. We had one in the budget last year that got pulled out. That one we have sunk probably about $5,000 into this year to keep it going. There's another one that has now surpassed what we figured to be the service life. So we really kind of need to get two of them. The reason why we go with these is because we need them to be really reliable. If we were running a different sort of operation and we could afford to have downtime on forklifts that we're constantly working on because we run high hour equipment, that would be a different story. But we need the stuff to work when we need it. So
the other one I would like to point out is commercial marina relocate the hoist dock electrical. On high tide, the electrical actually goes under the water. So it's an extremely high risk, and it's a safety issue that we need to get that one done.
that was another one we got pulled on. We talked about this previously. So.
Yeah. So it's one we just sort of have. If you don't do it, someone's going to get really hurt.
The only thing that I would say is, when we talk about the administrative building and the event center, I think we should listen to what the city has to say if they change their zoning. We might not be building it, and then maybe looking at something away from support. We haven't done any projects in the last 2 or 3 years, big ones. Fort Dock Five is going to be our biggest one, and that's one of the reasons why we have such a wide reserve built up. But with projected revenues and what we have in reserve, I'd like to kind of see where we're at with that. Because we can do a lot of these projects now, but we could burn up a lot of our reserves, and with the uncertainty we have for the next 6 months, I would just like to see what the payoff is there. Thank you.
Well, as a reminder, again, if we're going after funds, often, you got to show them it's in your budget. So a lot of those things here, we are taking into consideration what we would get. Because the intent is definitely not to burn out our reserves. And to look and making sure that at least we have those projects, and if we need to move them around, and say, and what ended up happening typically is like halfway through the year, you kind of have a better idea which project's going to move forward, which ones will not. And if you have, for instance, set aside a certain amount from our general funds to go towards that project, but you know it's not going to happen, but you have a very likelihood of making this project happen, that will push to get, the funding for that project, and then, to move the other project ahead further. But in order to ask for monies, you've got to have that in here.
Oh, no, I'm not saying take them off. I just want to know how much
Sure.
we have. And
Yeah, we move our priorities a little bit throughout the years, throughout the year.
So a question and a comment. So going back to this table 6.5, so that's the 5-year plan. I'm trying to link that to this list of your requests. So that's one thing. So what's different between these two? And I didn't do a study comparison. Two is, my comment here is, just sitting here listening to the three, it's a little confusing because I'm hearing Mark talk about some stuff, I'm hearing Aaron talk about some stuff, and what I'm not hearing is kind of where you reached kind of your sense of consensus. What's really, and maybe you all have reached
We
consensus
have.
on this. But it's confusing because you have like priority, you have blanks in some of this, you have others critical, others that are ones. And so I'm trying to figure out your relative comparisons of what's critical to the port overall. And maybe that's where you're relying on the commission to listen to you and decide what's critical. But this gets back to the issue of hearing from the three of you. You've done a lot of thinking together and listening to you, because you've got three smart people here, and making sure you're all on the same page in terms of consensus on this. And what is, and there's the other issue, sorry, it's complicated, but this critical for short term versus critical for long term. There's a long term need for planning, and there's a short term critical need that has to be done in this year. So it has to be done this year versus it has to be done over the next 5 years. We need to start now. So I'm trying to figure out how to trade off all this stuff. Go ahead.
So I'll tell you how we came up to this plan. First of all, whatever you hear from Mark or Aaron or me, it's all stuff that we sat down and talked about together. So even though you may be hearing from three different people, it maybe is the areas that they're more familiar with, that but the reality is we all came to the same conclusion. What we did is not only the three of us talked, but we had Aaron talk to his harbor masters to find out what is critical for them. Because they're the ones out there, handling the customers, the operations of that area, and as well as Dawn, on NIT. So and Jim and Noah, so we got all the managers together, and we kind of vet this this out together, trying to figure it out, and making sure that we are not over-exaggerating what our needs are, because we want to really focus on those things that are needed. So some of the things that Aaron mentioned that are critical as far as repairs especially, those definitely are things that we got to get done. Some of them were promised, such as he was talking about the electrical power upgrade, which is it's a safety issue, and then some of the hoist or dock electrical. There are a few things that he mentioned that those are critical things we need to get done for our operations. So those are not major capital improvements or new stuff, but there are things that we need to get it done for our operations that we either gonna have safety issues or we're gonna have loss of customers because we're no longer able to provide, okay? So those are definitely very important things we need to get done. And then there are the things that, again, as we now have a new finance director that can see what are lack of efficiencies because we don't have the proper equipment in the office and things like that. Mark looked at those type of things, and some of them are critical for the safety of our of interacting with customers, and through our computers and things like that. So those are things that we really need to make sure it's also taken care of in the long run. And some of those it's critical right now that we replace because we're already running into issues with old softwares and old computers and things like that. So that is very important. Of course, the building, you heard from me already, it's just something that keep on going and never gets done. So I think, in my view, it is an important thing that we need to address sooner than later, but for the most part, most of the requests here are based on plans. If we want to move forward with some of those other areas that we talked about, such as NIT and Dock 7, or maybe find a different source of revenue by doing a plan for Expo Center here or something like that. All of those things are on the plan stage, and we may get some grants and some of them we may have to get loans. But those are important on moving forward because you don't see right now some of the major projects such as Dock 7 here right now. The reason you don't see that is because we need to put together the plan. So I would say that is absolutely critical that we get that plan put together so we can move forward in the next few years. So it's I don't know if there's anything here that is easy for us to just say we can drop this.
I agree with that.
That we can drop this, that is not critical because
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's where I'm going with this. This is all critical, right? So it's just a question of when you do it and in terms of the time.
The only thing
Now, maybe the commission disagrees, but that's my sense of listening to the three of you.
one more thing, just one question that I have, and then again, I was gone for a couple of weeks, and I know we talked a bit about the Army Corps dredging thing. I thought that the $3.5 million was going to be for the following year, and this year is going to be just for the strategic plan, but I see that in here.
So the way that you're talking about this, when you say this year, you're talking
$3.5 million,
yeah, and let me get on to it.
That was the only one that I
Page 64.
Page 64.
So we still don't know what that cost share agreement is going to look like when it comes to pass, but it would be. I mean, and again, this number is kind of a made up number too.
But I thought we were going to do that in 21, not 20.
So it would be. It should be 21, someplace in
Yeah.
It should move to 21.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that should move to 21
It should move
because
to 21.
what we're doing with the Corps is right now they're actually doing this research on their own. It's cost $100,000 and they're paying for it. And then there is maybe $700,000, $900,000 for the strategic plan.
We think so.
And that's the part that they will be doing. They find whatever they're doing right now that they can move forward, then they would do more research, which would cost close to $1 million. It's anywhere from $700 to $1 million. And at that, they would require 50%. And that is what we intend to actually put into this coming fiscal year in the event that they decide to provide that. And eventually there will be the actual capital improvement, the work that the Corps would do. And at that point, that's the $3.5 million, and we'll figure it out later. But I think for this coming year, we're probably looking more into a project that is maybe 900, and we would be doing 450 from the port side.
Take care of that. It's easy.
This current fiscal year that we're on right now, they're going to give to us without cost to us a project estimate. They'll have it all scoped out so that by the end of this fiscal year, we'll know what the future cost would be of this thing. We don't really know right now. But that's, they're not going to be doing any construction work until years out.
But once they finish what they're doing this year, then they have the actual feasibility study.
Yeah, that's right.
And then feasibility study that they will do, and that is what they expect 50% of.
Yes, that's right.
So, apologies, but again, I just saw this.
I'll move it around, it's pretty easy. This capital project, I keep track it 5 years forward. So it's just moving it forward, is all it's doing. But I'll provide you a corrected copy. So that.
But anyhow, I don't know if you have any questions on that.
Does the commission have any more comments?
Brief comment. I really need to get going, so I just wanted to preface it with that. We have lots of things. We all have lots of things going on. I'd encourage you to look at scalability with the office building. That's a large dollar figure. I just built a building with 32 large workstations, 9 closed offices, a conference room, a family restroom, women's and men's, a garage space, multiple storage space for 1.2, with all local contractors.
We need your contractor then.
Yeah, the people are redoing the Bayfront. Look at Quality Construction. They're doing a ticketing annex, all local, and we have 40 plus people in there, and it's a very beautiful space. So just kind of think about scalability, how important tenants are versus how quickly you want it. That's kind of my only comment, and I really appreciate everything you guys have done, like putting critical in the priorities, and I support what you guys come up with, really, as far as the budgeting goes, and I appreciate it.
Thank you. And just before we actually get finalized with this budget, approving the budget, I am hoping that I can get an actual engineer estimate for the actual building, because it could be much less than that. We're just being cautious and not asking for too little and not. So we'll try to get that estimate, and then we'll come up with a better number for you at that point. Okay?
I'd like to see you get a new office building if the price is so high, especially with some economic downturn, that it won't happen, but how important it is for you guys to get in a new space is pretty darn important. So thinking about that scale.
Jim, what's the square footage on this?
67. It's a beautiful building. Capri designed it. It's designed for low maintenance, so it's hardy and vinyl windows versus cedar and wood windows like the rest of the aquarium. It's behind the scenes, but it's aesthetically pleasing. It's a great workspace. All the cabinets were made with birch and solid surfaces for all the workstations locally. I welcome any of you to come take a look at it when time's appropriate.
Maybe the cost of things are much less here than in the St. Louis area.
Yeah. Quality construction, and I can,
Correct.
Mike and Tim.
If you get it for less, I'm very happy.
Any other comments or questions?
Thank you.
Yeah, it's
You
been,
want to double check that everybody on the line? Do public comment?
any comments or questions from the invisible public? Nope.
So just a bottom line question, and again, I really appreciate what you presented, and I agree with the comments here about supporting this budget going forward. So this, what we've been looking at is what will be seen, these items will be seen in the budget. Correct? It's page 63, what we just been discussing.
Yeah, and Mark will provide now something you can take.
Oh, we'll take it with us.
Yeah, so you can ask questions later during
Okay.
the budget hearing.
So we'll see that.
And one thing, again, one of the things that I would like to come out of this goal setting is anything you would like to see on the future goal settings. And you don't need to give that to me right at this moment, but any input you may have, things that you'd like to see or discuss during this process, I think it will be very helpful in putting this agenda together in the future. So please, by any time you guys have any input on how we should get this done, it will be helpful. And I will try to keep you informed on how we're going to handle the coronavirus issue moving forward. So try to do that update on a weekly basis.
And we have some staff concerns we have to email library here, I'll show it, so we'll have to go back to the office and address those. On the resources pages, or excuse, not the resources, but the requirements pages under capital outlay is where you're going to see the actual projects. I put them in there by profit center, so you can see them real clearly how they're laid out. I did that specifically to help us this year.
All right. I don't think there's anything else, so the meeting is adjourned at 12:12.